Have you ever stood in a grocery aisle, maple leaf logos all around you, feeling a little swell of national pride as you reached for produce you believed was grown here at home? For many Canadians, that maple leaf has been a shortcut to trust, a symbol that they're supporting local farmers and putting Canadian food on their tables. But what if that maple leaf isn't what it seems? What if the proud Made in Canada label hides the fact that the food in your basket was imported from California, Peru, or Egypt? This practice has a name, maple washing, and it's at the center of a potential class action lawsuit now being prepared in Montreal. The case is expected to target some of the country's largest grocery chains, accusing them of deliberately misleading consumers with deceptive branding. And if it succeeds, the outcome could ripple far beyond a few mislabeled bags of asparagus. It could finally change how Canadian grocers market their products, how regulators enforce the rules, and how much trust shoppers can place in the brands that dominate our food supply. How maple washing works. On the surface, maple washing is simple. It's the use of Canadian symbols, especially the maple leaf, or vague "Made in Canada" claims to create the impression that a product is domestic when it's not. But behind that simplicity is a sophisticated play on psychology. Shoppers want to support their farmers, especially in a time of rising food insecurity and economic uncertainty. They want to believe that by paying a few cents more, they're helping keep jobs in their communities. Instead, many are paying inflated prices for imports. The stories are piling up. A shopper in Ontario shared photos of Canadian oranges, only to watch them become product of Egypt overnight, with a 15% price drop. Asparagus sold as Canadian turned out to be Peruvian. Almonds were advertised as local, though they clearly weren't. Avocado oil bottles dressed up with red maple leaf branding looked like homegrown products, but the fine print told another story. Imported. When these errors are corrected, the products don't just get relabeled, they often get cheaper. That raises an uncomfortable question. Were they ever meant to be mistakes at all? Or is maple washing a business strategy disguised as sloppiness? A pattern of broken trust. It is not the first time that supermarkets in Canada have been accused of betraying consumers. Consumers already have a healthy amount of suspicion about promises made by corporations. This is due to the bread price fixing incident, which went on for over 10 years and resulted in the prices of a basic food item being artificially high. It is estimated that Canadians lost $5 billion because of the scheme. And although a recent settlement permits customers to file a claim for a payout of $100, the harm that has been done to the public's faith is incalculable. At this point, the practice of maple washing poses a threat to make that cynical outlook even more entrenched. For a significant number of Canadians, going to the grocery store is already an experience that tests their stamina. Families are doing everything they can to save money, because incomes have not kept up with the rapidly rising cost of living. It is not merely a nuisance to then find out that grocery stores are engaging in price gouging by misrepresenting the sources of the food they sell. It feels like they are taking advantage of their customers. Canadians are not only paying an exorbitant amount of money, but they are also being deceived into thinking that they are doing the right thing. Are the rules too weak to matter? Regulations at the federal level are supposed to prohibit labeling that is deceptive. In order to ensure that consumers are not deceived, the Canadian Food Inspection Agency requires that food labels and retail signage be truthful. That appears to be simple when written down. When it comes to real-world application, the penalties are so negligible that they are hardly discernible. For each offense, the maximum penalties for violations is $15,000. That might potentially hurt if it were a corner store. It is hardly even a rounding error for a business that reports billions in annual revenues, such as Loblaw or Sobeys. According to the opponents, why would a grocer be concerned about fines that only amount to a few dollars when deceptive labels can generate millions of dollars in additional revenue? This brings up a broader issue with the implementation of the law. If the rules are not successful in discouraging infractions, is it possible that they do not provide any actual protection to consumers? And if they do not, what is the extent of the federal government's responsibility to rewrite them in a manner that will truly have an impact? What grocers say. Major grocery stores claim that they strive for accuracy when they are questioned about it. They contend that the management of country of origin labeling is a complicated process, given the fact that supply chains are in a state of flux on a daily basis and inventories are continually changing. They are attempting to limit the number of mistakes that occur, but they also acknowledge that mistakes are a part of life. However, there is a caveat. In the vast majority of cases, those errors appear to be advantageous to the grocer rather than the customer. It is uncommon for them to lead to the mislabeling of products as foreign, when, in reality, they are of Canadian origin. They constantly make imports appear to be produced domestically instead. When the inevitable price reduction that results from the correction of errors is factored in, the explanation of inventory challenges starts to seem less like a justification and more like a strategic plan. What consumers can do it is at this point that Canadians themselves enter the narrative. The Canadian Food Inspection Agency does not conduct investigations in a vacuum. Instead, it responds to complaints that have been filed. Grocers respond when customers snap pictures, submit reports, and post their findings on social media platforms. As a matter of fact, the maple washing situations that went viral on the internet were frequently resolved in a matter of hours. The last time Canadians mobilized around this issue, the number of official complaints increased from approximately 30 to more than 100. Although that might not seem like a significant amount, it was sufficient to compel the agency to take action. Envision the consequences that would result from the number of complaints growing to the point where they reach into the thousands. Social media has developed into a technology that has an especially strong influence. Posts that call out maple washing do not only reach grocery stores, they also reach other consumers who become more watchful and more willing to confront what they see in stores. When even just one picture of a product that has been incorrectly labeled spreads like wildfire, it can compel firms worth billions of dollars to struggle to maintain control of the story. To be honest, although it is possible that a class action lawsuit would someday hold grocery stores accountable in court, public action can put pressure on businesses to make changes now. Beyond Canada, how do other countries handle this? The practice of employing national symbols in order to deceive customers is not something that is exclusive to Canada. However, there is a vast range of variation in the strictness of the regulations that are in place. The laws governing the labeling of food are significantly stricter in a number of European nations, and penalties for non-compliance can be as high as millions of dollars. There are systems in existence in countries such as France, Germany, and Italy that not only provide penalties for deceptive labels, but also mandate the provision of in-depth information regarding the origin of products, which allows for very little space for interpretation. Regulators in Australia and New Zealand have also developed tougher regulations, especially in relation to claims of being produced or cultivated locally. In those countries, labeling errors carry severe implications, and organizations suffer brand damage if they fail to comply. It is possible that Canadians are curious as to why comparable criteria have not been implemented in this country. Are our regulatory agencies too forgiving? Is it possible that our grocery store owners have too much power? Alternatively, is it the case that Canadians have not yet voiced their demands for change with sufficient volume? A turning point, The litigation that is now moving forward could prove to be a watershed moment in history. If it is victorious, it could potentially compel grocery stores to pay out substantial damages, establish legal precedents that will impact future cases, and encourage regulators to strengthen enforcement. However, the realization of that outcome will be dependent on factors that go beyond the involvement of attorneys and judges. It is contingent on Canadians rejecting the practice of maple washing as simply one more expense that comes with purchase. This matter, at its core, is a question of faith. Is it possible for Canadians to have faith in the labels that they encounter when they go to the grocery store? Is it possible for them to have confidence that paying a premium for a product from Canada truly benefits Canadian farmers? Or will symbols such as the maple leaf continue to be devalued to the point where they are nothing more than marketing tools? The conversation we need to have. So here's where you come in. Have you ever caught maple washing at your local store? How did you respond? Should fines be drastically higher, tied to company revenues so they actually matter? And if you're reading this from Europe, Australia, or elsewhere, how strict are your food labeling laws? And do you see similar problems where you live? The answers to those questions aren't just academic. They determine whether this lawsuit becomes the start of something bigger, or just another footnote in a long history of corporate misbehavior that Canadians shrug off. For now, the maple leaf on your grocery store shelf is still a question mark. Is it a symbol of Canadian pride and farming? Or is it just another tool in the grocer's marketing playbook? The coming months may tell us which one it really is. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel.